I was told there was going to be a moderator introducing me. I guess he must have found one of the booths with free beer. So he's probably over there. I'll probably be doing the same thing myself later, so I don't blame him. And I'll jump into the speech so you guys can all go get some free beers later on as well. So I guess I have to introduce myself. I'm probably the coolest guy you'll ever meet. I'm modest as well. But I'll stop being biased and I'll jump right into the presentation here. So Todd Burns, CEO of Cypher Environmental. It's a pleasure to be here in Germany. It's my first time. I've been to 40 countries around the world, but it's my first time in Germany. So it's been an awesome experience so far. The presentation today is called Reduction of Operational Costs and Environmental Footprint through Better Road Management. So really quickly, we're headquartered in Canada, in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's in the center of Canada. We manufacture all our products there, and we ship them all over the world. We work with distributors all over the world. We're here with our distributor in the EU, Vumos Oy from Finland. A couple of guys from Vumos in the room here. Thanks a lot, Jan and Jan from Vumos for having us out with you guys today. So I'll jump right into the presentation. So how are we different? So there's a lot of companies out there that sell products for road stabilization or dust control that spilled something on a road and found out that the road got hard, and now they're marketing as a dust suppressant. So roads are what we do, period. We focus 100% on roadway infrastructure to make roads more sustainable and reduce the operating costs thereof. So we employ engineers, engineering technicians, construction foremen. So when you're using one of our products, which I will get to in a minute, we won't just give you instructions on how to use it. We'll actually send someone to your site to train you and work with you and hold your hand to make sure you get the highest level of ROI on our technologies. So we have our own soils testing lab. Like I said, we understand roads and the materials that go into them. We use the lab not only for a barometer in terms of developing new products, but also as a part of our QA, QC process as we're testing random batch samples of the products that we produce and ship to you. So really quickly before I get into the products, just a quick slide on our core values. We wanted to give back a lot more to our clients beyond just making them more sustainable through the use of our technologies. So we developed a program called Cypher Green Roads. So when we work with any mining client, or any client around the world for that matter, we are multi-sectoral in terms of the fact that we serve mines, oil and gas, forestry. We do secondary roads for government. We donate up to 5% of the project value to the local community in the form of the product. So the same product that's making the mine more sustainable will now make the community next to the mine more sustainable as well. So it's sharing of best practices between the mine and the community. It's really elevating CSR, or corporate social responsibility. It really provides that social license to operate that some mining clients have a challenge with. And it really focuses on that community engagement piece. Now, this picture here is Pond Inlet. We actually provided all the dust control for Pond Inlet for free. It's near one of our larger Canadian mining clients called Baffinland. They're at the top of Baffin Island, a very, very remote mine. We have the contract to do a 104-kilometer access road of dust control for them. And as a result, we did all the dust control for free in the community. And we actually trained somebody in the community as well, or some community members, on how to apply the product. So we introduced essential skill sets to that community. So they now know how to actually apply the products themselves. There's a video here. I don't know how to get this video to play. Maybe somebody in the back, if you guys can play the video. Oh, here we go. So I'll talk through it a little bit. This is another recipient of our Cypher Green Roads program called B2 Gold. I'm not sure if you can read that. But it's a really heartwarming video. You can find it on YouTube if you can't see it, of community members in the village. It's called New Fadugu. So we actually provided all the dust control for free for the community of New Fadugu, and B2 Gold applied the product for them. So it's a really great, again, example of CSR and social license to operate, and really heartwarming to see the words of the community members here talking about the positive impact that our products have had on the community themselves. And it's, like I said before, it's the same product that the mine is actually using to make their roads more sustainable. So I'm not sure if you can read that, and you can't hear it, so I might just jump to the next slide here. Have a look for that on YouTube or our social media channels. Jumping into the actual products themselves, Dust Blocker Sugar Blend, the SB stands for Sugar Blend, is our 100% environmentally friendly alternative to products like magnesium and calcium chloride or hydrocarbon-based products for dust control. It's a much higher performing product with zero environmental impact, and that's actually one of the haul roads for Baffinland that you see there. Like I mentioned in the first slide, you see how close it is to the ocean, so for them it was very critical to use a sustainable, environmentally friendly product. So the product itself is applied globally, haul roads, access roads. You can apply it to tailings piles as well to eliminate dust, wind erosion and water erosion from tailings piles. And airstrips, that's another big target for us is airstrips. A lot of mines are in remote areas such as Baffinland, and we can do airstrips as well. So the product itself comes in a highly concentrated liquid form. So you mix it with water prior to application. It's composed of sugars, starches, and a mineral component. So environmentally friendly you could eat it. In fact, it's made of industrial grade versions of food grade products. With that being said, it won't attract wildlife though. That's an important piece to remember. It won't attract wildlife to the road. But it's applicable to virtually any material type. Our team members will actually train you again on the right procedures based on different materials in terms of how to apply it and get the best results. I'm going to show a video later of a really, really challenging situation at a mine in Saudi Arabia with really challenging materials and show the effectiveness of the product. I talked about it being higher performance than traditional dust suppressants. So it actually is going to reduce your OPEX, so reduce grading frequency, reduce resheeting of your road. Remember, the dust cloud that's blowing away from your road is not just an unsightly hazard or an environmental issue, it's a piece of your road that's blowing away in the wind. Now the fines in that road that are blowing away in the wind is what's locking down the aggregates and the gravel. So once you lose the fines, you eventually lose the aggregates and you need to resheet the road. So this is a really good preventative way to maintain the road and reduce your operating costs. And of course, it dramatically reduces watering. A lot of people still just use water for dust control. The water most people think is free, but the fuel that you burn 24 hours a day driving around spraying water on your road is extremely costly. So not only does it save fuel, but it reduces CO2 emissions. And I'm going to show a stat later of how much water we've reduced for one of our mining clients. Oh, sorry, it's on this page here. So we've reduced over 85% water consumption for some of our mining clients, a huge, huge reduction in water, over 90% reductions in dust. We actually do dust monitoring for our clients as well. So we have a device where we can actually hook it up to a vehicle, drive back and forth on the road, and show you how much dust you've reduced on your haul roads or your access roads. I talked about it being higher performance and providing stability gains as a side effect. We did a research project in South Africa with our ArcelorMittal where we mixed their slag with standard road building aggregates and did strength testing. And we received over 300% gain in CBR, or California Barren Ratio. It's an engineering term for soil strength. It improves tire life because your roads are smoother. It reduces wear and tear on your tires, so it improves tire life. It doesn't run off in the rain or get slippery. A major challenge or major issue for anyone who's used magnesium chloride or calcium chloride or bischofita for anyone who's located in South America, which is how it's called in Spanish. It's hygroscopic and it gets slippery when it gets wet. Our product has zero issues with traction. So certified to Boeing standards. You may wonder, what does that have to do in terms of relevance in a mining presentation? Like I said before, we're approved to apply it on airstrips. We actually just got the approval by Transport Canada. So why that's important is, and again, another differentiator from the salt-based products, is it proves that it's fully non-corrosive. So it's safe to use around airplanes. It won't cause any negative impacts on the paints and the coatings and the moving parts of your aircraft. And why that's critical, of course, in mining is because it also won't have any negative impact on your haul trucks, on your water trucks, on your graders. It won't cause rust. It doesn't have any negative impact whatsoever. It actually won't run off of the road, but if it splashes onto any equipment while you're applying it, it's very easy to wash off the equipment. US EPA Safer Choice certified. Obviously, that's another really critical differentiating factor. Essentially, the US EPA has fully analyzed our supply chain and all of our raw materials and we made all of their sustainability criteria. So you can use it even in the most environmentally sensitive areas. Easy adoption. When we develop any products, we really focus on easy adoption for our clients. It's critical that you don't need to use any type of specialized equipment to apply the products. So you're applying it with the same standard water trucks that you would be applying water or any other product with. Like I said before, it comes in a concentrated form. So it says here 15 to 20% dilution rates. That's of product to water. So 15% product to 85% water, for example. So logistics costs are low to ship it to remote sites. It can be stored outdoors, even in extremely cold temperatures. I mentioned Baffinland before, and I mentioned a customer in Africa. Both of those customers store the product outdoors. Baffinland, I think, is a 64th parallel. So it's extremely far north. They have -50 temperatures in the wintertime, for example, and it's freeze-thaw stable. And of course, in Africa, they probably have close to +50, and they're storing it outdoors there as well with no issues. Applied with standard techniques, like I said before, and standard equipment. Treated roads can be driven on instantly. That's a really critical factor. There are some products that require a substantial curing time before you can drive on the roads. Our roads can be driven on right away with no negative impact. In fact, the traffic actually helps to provide compaction on the road, so it actually helps to benefit the product. Because like I mentioned, it also provides some stability gains. So you know the next point here is applied topically or mixed in. So if you just spray it on topically, you're going to get some great dust control results. But for longer lasting results and for greater stability, you can actually mix it into the top few inches of the road material, and you see greater stability gains, so increases in CBR, even reductions in rolling resistance, which is basically reducing the friction between the road and the tire, which makes your haul trucks more fuel efficient. I'm going to talk more about that with our next product as well. And roads can be maintained, so you can actually grade the road after the product has been applied and still see positive results thereafter. One of our distributors from Slovakia was here earlier today and talking about how he treated a parking lot. It wasn't a mining application, but a parking lot, and had some issues with the contractor that didn't do proper drainage. So they had to rip the parking lot up and recompact it, and they still saw great results of stability and dust control afterwards. So here's another one of those videos. Let me see if I can figure out how to play the video. So this is a really, really challenging environment. It's a Giriko limestone mine in Saudi Arabia. You see that vehicle essentially disappears in the cloud of dust. So, you know, a huge impact on safety, a huge impact on productivity. The last speaker talked a lot about cycle times. Obviously, you can reduce your cycle times when haul trucks can follow each other more closely together. Also, if you're keeping graders off the road and maintaining them less, keeping water trucks off the road, those are all getting in the way of your haul trucks. And so if you're keeping all that ancillary equipment off your road, you're really, really helping to improve cycle times and improve productivity. Now in this, sorry, did this video play? But anyways, in this video, it actually looks kind of wet still. So we'd posted this on our social media, and it went viral because of the huge impact or the huge difference when you can clearly see that vehicle and it disappeared before. Some people called us out and said, well, it looks like the road is still kind of wet. So we posted this video of the same road 6 weeks later, clearly with no rain. It's in the Saudi Arabian desert, an extremely dry environment. You see the road is very hard and stable. They should have pointed the camera in the other direction, but I can assure you there's no dust behind that vehicle. And what customers really like is because of the sugars and starches, has a rich pigment to it, so there's a lot of color in the product, so people can actually see it on the road. So they really appreciate being able to see where the roads have been treated. So you'll see the road is very stable. You can obviously see that it's in a very stable, hard, smooth running surface. So you can imagine that the huge positive impact on that road. What I like about this one, this is another B2 Gold mine. We've worked with both of their mines in Africa. This is Oshikoto in Namibia. You see the speed of this haul truck. So again, I talked about reducing rolling resistance, improving cycle times. It's a fully loaded 777, it looks like, so it's a 100-ton haul truck. You can see no dust at all. You can obviously tell that it will improve the tire life because of the smooth running surface. So a lot of secondary benefits to the mine beyond just reducing dust emissions and making them more sustainable. So that was the first product, dust blocker. Jumping to the next product here, road stabilizer. This product is specifically designed to be a stabilization aid for high clay content materials, which are normally marginal in terms of their engineering properties, because as we all know, when clay gets wet, it swells and it loses all of its strength, produces a lot of downtime on haul roads, and of course, you know, this provides a much higher performing road both in wet and dry weather. This is the SMB bauxite mine in Guinea, West Africa. They did a 20-kilometer stretch of their haul road where they haul ore from the pit to the port. And as you can see, you wouldn't see this in Canada, but you certainly see it in other places of the world where they actually share the haul road with the community. So you see there's actually a guy on a motorcycle behind the haul truck there. And obviously you can also tell how heavily traveled that road is. They say there's actually 5,000 vehicle movements per day on that, so 2,500 round trips. Huge volume of traffic. So what I think is the most unique property of road stabilizer is how concentrated it is. I talked about dust blocker being concentrated. Road stabilizer treats roads at a rate of 1 liter per 33 cubic meters of compacted road material. So it's unrivaled in terms of logistics savings and product cost per mile or per kilometer of treated road. The other very unique property of it is one application is permanent. It lasts for years. If you come by our booth, which is it's B5420, and I think we'll show the number later on, you'll see a picture of an actual road, and it was stabilized only one time, and it was 7 years old, and we used a diamond tip saw to cut a piece of that road out with no further applications of the product. So you can see how dense the product is and what the end product will look like. But that one application lasting for years is extremely unique, and this product is also certified to Boeing standards. So no negative impact on your haul trucks, water trucks, graders, or anything else. This is the Shenhua mine pictured here. It's a coal mine in China. I'm going to show a really cool stat later on of how much fuel they saved after stabilizing their roads as a result of reducing rolling resistance. So it's used to treat the wearing course normally of haul roads. Of course, I mentioned that we are multi-sectoral in terms of building roads for numerous sectors. So you can also put it in the sub-base or subgrade underneath pavement or underneath chip seal. You can actually reduce the modulus of elasticity, and so potentially reduce the thickness of the pavement or increase the lifespan of the pavement. But again, standard construction techniques and equipment used, so easy adoption of this technology as well. You don't need specialized equipment whatsoever. And again, this is actually the Shenhua coal mine as well. And you'll actually see, if you look closely, it's actually raining in this picture. They had about 90% passing the number 200 sieve, which means it's 90% fines or 90% clay and silts. So a very, very poor road building material. And you'll see very minimal impact, if anything, behind the tire tracks of the vehicle there during the rain. So how the product works. Clay essentially has an opposite charge to water. That's why in the presence of water, it always swells. So we introduce a receptor, clay has a receptor that attracts that water molecule. And so we fill that receptor on the clay platelet so it no longer is attracted to that water. So during the compaction process, and you have to compact roads when you're building it, you can't just spray it on and leave it. Mixing in and compacting is necessary when you're building roads with road stabilizer. But during the compaction process, because we fill that receptor, we push more water out, providing increases in density. There's wetting agents in the product as well. So they're like surfactants. They reduce the surface tension of the water held within the soil matrix during the compaction process. So by reducing that surface tension, we can further push more water out, further increasing density, and we have some a catalytic reaction that takes place, or catalysts, that provide electrostatic bonding between the clay platelets. So essentially, we're cementing everything together with the clay. So the clay is binding everything together. And so that's why it's really important to understand what's in the road material before you treat it. We actually go as far as not even selling you a product, at least the road stabilizer product, until we know that your roads and your materials are suitable for treatment with road stabilizer. So we want to see the results of a soil analysis. This is a standard soil analysis you can do anywhere in the world. Of course, we can do it for our customers in Canada. Sometimes there's challenges in shipping soils across borders. but what we're looking for is a minimum of 20% passing the number 200 or 75 micron sieve, and plotting above the A line on the Casa Grande chart. So apologies if anyone's not an engineer in the room. I'm actually not an engineer either. I can tend to talk like one, but I'm not. I don't have one of those rings on my pinky finger. But when I say plotting above the A line on the Casa Grande chart, the materials above the A line are sea-based soils or clay-based soils. So we know they're going to have the cohesive properties that we want of clay. Something plotting below that is an M-based or silt-based soil. So it's not going to have the cohesive properties that we want, and therefore wouldn't be suitable for treatment. Now, we designed the technologies to be compatible with each other and synergistic with each other. So if you don't quite have the right properties for long-term stabilization with road stabilizer, we're actually doing a lot of projects where we mix both products together, and you still get long-term stability through the added binding you get through the sugar blender for the dust blocker product in combination with road stabilizer. So a standard particle size analysis and Atterberg's limit test is really all that you need to see. A Proctor test is very important. For those of you who don't know what a Proctor test is, it creates a bell curve. It shows you what the optimum moisture content is to compact the road at. That at optimum moisture content, when you compact it, that's when you reach maximum dry density. So, you know, a little anecdotal evidence, 98% is typically the target when you're building roads in terms of density or compaction. The highest I've ever seen is 108.8% density or compaction. It's unheard of to get over 100, and so 108.8% is extremely high. And of course, we have all this available in third-party lab results. So in terms of the benefits, it's all about increasing the engineering properties of the treated materials. So increasing CBR, or California Barron ratio, increasing density, like I just talked about, reducing permeability, reducing swell. So in the presence of water or in the rainy season, it's not going to swell. You're going to have much higher performing roads in wet weather. And reducing deflection. So deflection is like when your haul truck is moving over a road, the road actually moves a little bit. If the CBR or the density, for example, is a little low, the road will move a little bit. So it actually creates more contact between the road and the tire, therefore creating more friction between the road and the tire. And so when we reduce that movement and we improve the surface roughness of the road, we reduce rolling resistance, so less energy required to go from point A to point B. So your haul trucks actually become more productive and more fuel efficient. And so the whole philosophy here is to build lower cost roads because you're using cheaper materials, like high clay content materials, which are in abundance in a lot of parts of the world, and aggregates are becoming more and more depleted all over the world. So you can use lower cost materials to build your roads and substantially reduce your OPEX. In terms of reduced grading frequency, you're going to reduce dust control requirements as a side effect with this product. That's why I talked about the products being really complementary of each other. So you're going to reduce your watering frequency as well, even though dust control isn't the primary target of road stabilizer. Dust blocker it is. So ultimately, lower cost roads to build and lower cost roads to maintain. Substantially lower cost roads to maintain. And of course, less resheeting requirements as well. Remember saying one application lasts for years, so you're not needing to resheet the road over and over again. So it saves a huge amount on material costs when you're building the roads. So in terms of case studies, and like I said, we've got all this available on third-party letterhead for anyone who wants to see it. 61% reduction in rolling resistance as reported by Syncrude. Syncrude is a mine up in the Canadian oil sands. They literally have no gravel left. So all of their overburden is clay, extremely high clay content material. We're talking about upwards of 90% passing the number 200 sieve, similar to what I mentioned before about the Shenhua mine. So it's very poor road building material. If you look at untreated roads, you can almost see like a wave in front of the tire as it's driving. So their rolling resistance was 7% before. For any of you who know about rolling resistance, that's extremely poor. We reduced it all the way down to 2.7%. So that's a huge, huge reduction in fuel consumption and massive gains in productivity. Shenhua, again, the one who I showed the pictures of before, the coal mine in China, they actually published a paper online. We didn't know anything about it. Normally when someone is working on a research project, they work with the manufacturer to understand more about the technology. We actually found it online after they had published it. they reduced their fuel consumption by 17.4% a year after we had treated the roads. On a certain, I can't remember what the stretch of road is. The case study will mention it, but it equated to a $3.6 million reduction in fuel costs that year for them, and over 11,000 tons of CO2 reduced as a result of burning less fuel. So you can imagine the huge impact that has on their OPEX. And of course, by reducing that rolling resistance, reducing the friction with the tires, it's obviously going to improve tire life as well. EngTech, it's a local consulting engineering firm in Canada, where I'm from. They did a study on, and remember, we're multi-sectoral. They did a study on some municipal haul roads that we had built for what's called the RM, or the Rural Municipality of Cornwallis, near Winnipeg, where our headquarters is in the center of Canada. They reported, so they studied the roads and compared them to traditional provincial road building methods and standards, and they reported it was 12% lower in capital costs to build roads using our technology because of the lower cost materials. Because when they were building roads, they were doing an admixture. They needed to resheet the roads anyways, so they were doing an admixture. Instead of just resheeting with pure gravel, they mixed the gravel with clay. And so the clay, of course, is cheap, and so very much lower in cost to actually build the roads. Not to mention the long-term OPEX, like I had mentioned in the two previous points there. So proofs in the pudding. Again, several different examples here of CBR gains. California bearing ratio, again, for the newcomers, I see a lot of people filtering into the seats here. CBR is California bearing ratio. It's an engineering term for soil strength. If you apply the product correctly, you're always going to see a gain in CBR. You may wonder why at the top there, for example, you see a 353% gain in CBR. The lowest one there is 51%. There's different types of clays. Montmorillonite is much more active versus an illite or a kaolinite that are a little bit less active. They're a little bit less reactive to water. There's different percentages of silt to clay ratios and different gradations of materials. Ultimately, your CBR will always gain if you apply the product at OMC and compact it properly. In my opinion, though, reducing swell is that much more important, because for those of you in countries that have a rainy season, and when your roads built with clay get wet and they swell and you lose all the strength, that's when you have a lot of downtime, a lot of costs in terms of increasing your OPEX, because you have to maintain the roads or even shut them down during the rainy season or in wet weather. So, this is almost essentially like saying, maintaining up to 97% of your dry strength when wet, for example. I mean, that's sort of a roundabout way of saying it. But as you can see here, a huge substantial reduction in swell potential. In fact, if I go back to this slide, you see the bottom one is a soaked CBR. That's from Ghana. That's from Ghana. It's a Tetra Tech study, but by 168% gain in soaked CBR, so doing a California bearing ratio test when wet. And we actually have a 2-year study published in the Canadian Geotechnical Journal about reducing capillary rise. So that's water being sucked up and uptaken from below the road. So that's what's causing a lot of your major subgrade failures, potholes, all the issues on your roads from below. And so we did a 2-year study, basically compacted soil columns, soaked them in water, and measured the water uptake. And we dramatically reduced the uptake. And it's published in the Canadian Geotechnical Journal. There's the link, but we can also share it with you as well. So here's the first picture I showed you in the road stabilizer section. This is an example of what the road looked like after treatment. As you can see, the haul truck drivers are very happy, giving us a little honk there. You see how heavily traveled it is. Virtually no dust. So very high performing road. And again, this is in Guinea, West Africa, with a very heavy rainy season. So that's it, guys. If you're interested in more information, I'm going to stick around. We got some brochures here. A couple of other team members in the crowd. We're at Hall B5 at stand 420. So come see us. That's what our booth looks like. There's a few Cypher logos, but for the most part, it's going to say Vumos, so don't be surprised. Vumos is our distributor here in the EU, so we're joining them at their booth this week. Thanks again, guys, for having us. Here's our contact details if you guys want to reach out. So thanks so much for the time. I guess there's not a whole lot of time for Q&A. It looks like I've exactly used up my time today. So you want to come ask some questions, I'll hang around for a little bit here. So thanks so much, everyone.